Dr. Alex Carter stared at his computer screen in the underground lab beneath Geneva. The numbers made no sense at first, but after checking them 3 times, he knew they were real. 12 massive objects were moving toward Earth through space, and they were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Alex picked up his phone and called Admiral Lisa Kane at the Global Defense Center. She answered on the first ring because the automated systems had already warned her about the incoming signals. "How big are we talking about, Alex?" she asked without saying hello. "Each ship is about 50 kilometers long and 20 kilometers wide. They are moving at speeds that should be impossible with any technology we know about," Alex said while watching the tracking data update. Every few seconds, Lisa felt her stomach drop. Earth had been peaceful for decades after the climate wars ended and the great rebuilding began. Cities were green again and the oceans were clean. Most people alive had never seen real war, and now something was coming from the stars. The ships arrived exactly 6 days later and positioned themselves around Earth in a perfect formation. They did not attack or send any signals at first. They just waited in space like giant metal mountains floating above the planet. People all over Earth looked up at the night sky and could see the alien ships as bright dots that did not move like stars or planets. Fear spread through every nation as governments tried to figure out what to do next. On the 7th day, the aliens finally made contact. A beam of energy came down from the largest ship and created a glowing platform in the middle of New York City. 3 beings stepped out of the light, and they were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The creatures stood nearly 3 meters tall with bodies that looked like they were made of living crystal. Their skin changed colors as they moved, and they had 4 arms instead of 2. Most strange of all was how they communicated by flashing patterns of light across their bodies instead of making sounds with their mouths. Admiral Kane led a team of diplomats and scientists to meet with the aliens. She wore her best uniform and tried to look confident even though her hands were shaking. The meeting took place in the United Nations building with representatives from every major country watching. The leader of the aliens introduced himself through a small device that translated his light patterns into human speech. His name was Zeth Prime, and he spoke in a voice that sounded like it came from a computer. "We are the Vorthan Empire," Zeth Prime said while his body flashed with blue and silver lights. "We have traveled across the galaxy for thousands of years, bringing order to primitive worlds." Lisa stepped forward and tried to keep her voice steady. "Welcome to Earth. We are honored by your visit and hope we can learn from each other." Zeth Prime's body flashed red for a moment, which the translation device said meant amusement. "You misunderstand the purpose of our arrival. We are not here to learn from you. We are here to inform you of your situation." The alien leader gestured with 2 of his 4 arms toward a holographic display that appeared in the air. It showed a map of local space with Earth at the center and lines of energy flowing around it. "Your planet sits on what you would call a crossroads of hyperspace travel routes. Our expanding empire requires this location for strategic purposes. We have come to offer you relocation to suitable worlds where your species can continue to exist." Dr. Carter, who had been brought to the meeting as an expert on alien technology, felt his blood turn cold. "You want us to leave our home planet. We want nothing from you," Zeth Prime replied with more red flashing. "We are informing you of what will happen. You have 6 months to prepare for voluntary relocation. This is more time than we usually provide to primitive species." Lisa tried to maintain diplomatic composure, but anger was building in her chest. "What if we choose not to leave?" The alien leader's body turned completely silver, which the device translated as contempt. "That choice is not available to you. Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your governments cannot unite effectively against a common threat. We have studied 43 Worlds before yours, and the pattern is always the same. Captain Roy Bennett, who had been standing quietly in the back of the room, stepped forward. He was a former military strategist who now worked in civilian defense planning. You seem very confident about our capabilities. Zeth Prime turned to look at Roy, and his colors shifted to what appeared to be curiosity mixed with dismissal. We have observed your species for several weeks. Your military exercises are primitive. Your technology is inefficient. Your societies waste energy on emotional conflicts instead of logical organization. You are typical of species at your development level. The meeting ended with Zeth Prime providing coordinates for 3 colony worlds where humans would be relocated. The aliens returned to their ship through the same beam of light they had arrived on. As soon as they were gone, the world leaders began arguing about what to do next. That night, Alex Carter stood on the roof of his laboratory, looking up at the alien ships in the sky. He thought about everything Zeth Prime had said and realized the alien leader had made one crucial mistake. He had assumed that being primitive meant being weak, and being weak meant being helpless. Alex remembered the history lessons about how his own species had survived ice ages and plagues and wars by being adaptable rather than strong. Maybe the Vorthans had never met a species quite like humans before. Dear Elena Martinez had not slept in 3 days. She sat in her laboratory surrounded by computer screens showing energy readings from the Vorthan ships. Her team at the Advanced Weapons Division was trying to understand alien technology that seemed impossible by human standards. The energy output from their smallest ship could power the entire city of London for a year, said her assistant Jake while pointing at the numbers on his screen. Their shields deflect everything we can throw at them, and their plasma weapons could melt through our strongest armor like butter. Elena rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the data again. Something was bothering her about the patterns she was seeing, but she could not figure out what it was. The Vorthan technology was powerful, but it followed rules that seemed almost too organized. Jake, look at this, she said while highlighting sections of the energy readings. Every time they power up their weapons or adjust their shields, the energy flow follows the exact same pattern. There is no variation at all. Jake leaned over to study the data. Maybe that is just how their technology works, more efficient than our systems. Elena shook her head. No, that is not efficiency. That is rigidity. They have one way of doing things and they never change it. Meanwhile, across the city, Colonel Jake Morrison was studying the aliens themselves rather than their technology. His team had recorded every interaction between humans and Vorthans and was analyzing their behavior patterns. They operate like a military hierarchy, Morrison told his staff during their morning briefing. Zeth Prime gives orders and everyone below him follows them exactly. No questions and no suggestions, Lieutenant. Amy Foster, who worked on communication systems, looked up from her notes. That might explain why they seem so confident. If they have conquered 43 worlds using the same approach every time, then they probably think it will work on us too. Morrison nodded. The problem is that their approach has worked every time before. Show up with overwhelming force and give the locals a choice between relocation and destruction. Most species choose relocation, but Amy had noticed something else in the recorded conversations. Sir, did you hear how Zeth Prime talked about the other species they conquered? He called them all primitive and said they followed predictable patterns. I think the Vorthans see themselves as naturally superior to everyone else, Dr. Alex Carter joined Morrison's team that afternoon to share what he had learned about Vorthan psychology. The aliens had continued to monitor Earth, but they made no effort to hide their surveillance activities. They sent observation ships to hover over our major cities, Alex reported, but they are not trying to be subtle about it. Yesterday, one of their scouts watched our naval exercises in the Pacific Ocean and broadcast their observations back to the main fleet. Morrison pulled up the intercepted transmission on his computer. The alien observer had described human military tactics as primitive displays that pose no real threat to Vorthan's superiority. They are not taking us seriously at all, Morrison said. To them, we are just another primitive species going through the motions before we accept the inevitable. Amy Foster had been working on something else entirely. Her job was maintaining Earth's quantum communication network, which allowed instant contact between any 2 points on the planet. It was a breakthrough technology that humans had developed to coordinate disaster relief after the climate wars. Colonel, I think I found something important, Amy said while showing him her latest analysis. The Vorthans use energy-based communication that travels at light speed. They have never encountered quantum entanglement communication before. Morrison looked at the technical data without understanding most of it. What does that mean for us? It means they cannot detect our quantum networks at all. To their sensors. It looks like we have no long-range communication capability. They think our coordination is limited to radio and satellite systems that they can easily jam. Elena Martinez made her own breakthrough that same evening. She had been studying the rigid patterns in Vorthan energy signatures when she realized what was missing from their technology. They have never had to be efficient, she told her team excitedly. Every world they conquered had abundant energy resources, so they never learned to do more with less. Their technology is powerful, but it wastes enormous amounts of energy. Jake looked confused. How does that help us? We still cannot match their firepower, Elena smiled for the first time in days. We do not need to match their firepower. We need to make them waste it. Human technology developed during resource shortages, so we learn to be efficient out of necessity. We can do things they cannot even imagine by the end of the second week. After first contact, a clearer picture was emerging. The Vorthans were powerful but predictable. They were advanced but inflexible. Most importantly, they were overconfident to the point of carelessness. President Helen Brooks called a secret meeting of world leaders to discuss their options. The meeting took place in an underground bunker in Colorado that was shielded from Vorthan sensors. We have two choices, Brooks said to the assembled presidents and prime ministers. We can submit to relocation like every other species before us, or we can try something that has never been attempted. The French president spoke first. What do you mean something that has never been attempted? Brooks looked around the room at faces from every continent and every major nation. We fight back, but not in the way they expect. We use our weaknesses as strengths and turn their overconfidence against them. The Chinese premier raised his hand. Our militaries cannot defeat their technology. Even working together, we do not have weapons that can penetrate their shields. That is exactly the point, Brooks replied. They expect us to try conventional warfare and fail. They have seen it 43 times before. But what if we do not fight the way they expect? Morrison stood up to address the room. The Vorthans think they understand us because we fit their pattern of primitive species. But we are not like the others they conquered. We are stubborn and creative, and we do not give up easily. Elena Martinez added her own perspective. Their technology is superior, but it follows predictable patterns. If we can disrupt those patterns or force them to adapt quickly, they will be at a disadvantage. Amy Foster spoke last. They cannot detect our quantum communication networks, which means we can coordinate globally without them knowing about it. We can appear to be acting randomly while actually following a unified plan. The meeting ended with an unprecedented decision. Every nation on Earth would work together to resist the Vorthan ultimatum. But instead of trying to match alien technology, they would use human ingenuity and adaptability. The Vorthans continued to monitor Earth during the following weeks, but they saw exactly what they expected to see. Human governments arguing among themselves while their militaries conducted pointless exercises with primitive weapons. ZETH Prime reported to his superiors that Earth was following the usual pattern and would likely submit before the deadline expired. He recommended preparing the colony ships for standard relocation procedures, but beneath the surface of normal human activity, something unprecedented was taking shape. The transformation began in secret facilities hidden beneath major cities around the world. Dr. Alex Carter led a team of biologists working in a converted subway tunnel under London. They were developing something that had never been attempted before in human history. The Vorthan physiology is based on crystalline structures rather than carbon like ours, Alex explained to his international team. Their bodies process energy differently, which means they are vulnerable to specific biological agents that would not affect humans at all. Dr. Sarah Kim from South Korea looked up from her microscope. The samples we analyzed from their atmospheric emissions show traces of silicon-based metabolic processes. If we can create targeted bacteria that interfere with those processes, we can disable them without causing permanent harm. Alex finished. The goal is not to kill them, but to demonstrate that we understand their biology better than they understand ours. 3 floors above them, Elena Martinez was working with engineers from 12 different countries to modify civilian equipment into weapon systems. The Vorthans monitored Earth's military facilities constantly, but they paid no attention to construction sites and mining operations. A mining laser designed to cut through rock can be reconfigured to disrupt energy shields, Elena told the assembled team. Construction mechs built for heavy lifting can be armed with electromagnetic pulse generators. Commander Steve Walsh, who had been pulled out of retirement to coordinate the project, studied the blueprints spread across the table. The beauty of this approach is that nothing we are building looks like a weapon to their sensors. We are hiding our military preparation in plain sight. Amy Foster had expanded her quantum communication network to include every major population center on Earth. The invisible web of instant communication was completely undetectable to Vorthan technology and allowed perfect coordination between resistance cells. We can synchronize activities across 6 continents with precision timing, Amy reported during a secure video conference with resistance leaders. When we decide to act, every human facility can respond simultaneously. The Vorthans had extended their deadline by 2 weeks as an act of what they considered mercy toward a primitive species. Zeth Prime's Lieutenant Korth 7 monitored human activities and reported that Earth was engaging in meaningless busy work rather than preparing for evacuation. The humans are attempting to maintain their normal routines, Korth 7 transmitted to the main fleet. Their governments continue to argue while their populations ignore the reality of their situation. This species appears to be in psychological denial, but Captain Lucy Hayes, who worked in intelligence analysis, had been studying Vorthan communication patterns and discovered something important about their previous conquests. They have used exactly the same approach on every world, Lucy reported to Colonel Morrison. Overwhelming display of force followed by a generous offer of relocation. The psychological pressure always works because the target species assumes resistance is hopeless. Morrison studied the intercepted data from 43 previous invasions. What happened to species that actually tried to fight back? None of them did, Lucy replied. Every single species submitted after seeing Vorthan technology. The Empire has never faced actual organized resistance in their entire history. Meanwhile, civilian facilities across Earth were being quietly converted into defense networks. Weather monitoring stations received new equipment that could generate electromagnetic pulses. Subway systems were modified to serve as underground military bases. Agricultural drones were reprogrammed with new flight patterns and communication. Protocols. Dr. Elena Martinez made another breakthrough when she realized that Vorthan energy weapons required massive power generation systems that took time to recharge between shots. Their plasma cannons can destroy our largest buildings with it. A single blast, Elena explained to her weapons team. But after firing, they need 30 seconds to build up enough energy for another shot. If we can force them to waste their shots on decoy targets, we can attack during their recharge periods, completed her assistant. Human weapons are weaker, but they can fire continuously. The global resistance took shape over the following month. Every major city had hidden command centers connected by Amy Foster's quantum network. Civilian infrastructure that looked normal to Vorthan sensors had been modified into defensive systems. Most importantly, the entire human population had been secretly organized into coordinated resistance cells. Alex Carter's biological weapons were ready for deployment through atmospheric distribution systems that the aliens would mistake for normal air conditioning. Elena Martinez had converted enough civilian equipment into weapons to arm resistance fighters in every major city. Amy Foster's communication network could coordinate global activities with split-second timing. The Vorthans continued to assume that human activity was random and disorganized. Their sensors detected increased energy usage in some facilities, but they attributed this to normal industrial processes. They observed more people gathering in public places, but interpreted this as social behavior typical of primitive species. Zeth Prime received regular reports confirming that Earth was following the expected pattern. Human governments were still debating among themselves while their military forces conducted ineffective exercises with obsolete weapons. The deadline was approaching and the aliens prepared for routine evacuation procedures. But Dr. Alex Carter, standing on a rooftop in London, could see the truth that alien sensors missed. Every building around him contained hidden weapon systems. Every person walking on the street below was part of the resistance network. Every vehicle and communication device had been modified to serve the coming fight. The Vorthans had spent months studying human technology and finding it primitive compared to their own advanced systems. They had analyzed human military capabilities and dismissed them as inadequate. They had observed human social behavior and concluded that the species lacked the unity necessary for effective resistance. What they had not understood was that humans had been studying them as well. 43 worlds had submitted to Vorthan superiority because those species had tried to fight using conventional military approaches. But Earth was preparing to fight in ways that no species had ever attempted before. Amy Foster sent a final test signal through her quantum network. Confirmation responses came back from every major city within seconds. The invisible web of communication that connected human resistance cells across the planet was ready for activation. Elena Martinez ran diagnostics on the concealed weapon systems hidden throughout civilian infrastructure. Mining lasers designed to cut rock were ready to disrupt energy shields. Construction mechs built for heavy lifting were armed with electromagnetic weapons. Agricultural drones had been reprogrammed for military coordination. Alex Carter prepared the biological agents that would target Vorthan crystalline physiology without harming humans. The delivery systems were already in place and would activate on his command. The aliens had made their ultimatum expecting the same result. They had achieved 43 times before, but they had never encountered a species that would weaponize its entire civilization while appearing to maintain normal daily activities. Earth was ready to show the Vorthan Empire something they had never seen before. The deadline was tomorrow and the real war was about to begin. The deadline expired at exactly noon Greenwich Mean Time. Zeth Prime transmitted his final ultimatum to Earth from the command center of his flagship. His crystalline body flashed with colors of authority as he prepared to demonstrate Vorthan power to another primitive world. Humans of Earth, His translated voice echoed across every communication channel on the planet. Your time for voluntary relocation has ended. We will now begin demonstration attacks on your military installations to show the futility of resistance. Admiral Lisa Kane stood in the hidden command center beneath Geneva, watching her screens show what appeared to be the entire human fleet, gathered in the Atlantic Ocean. 12 massive ships carrying Earth's most advanced weapons floated on the surface, directly challenging the alien vessels above. All units maintain formation. Lisa spoke into her communicator, knowing that every ship captain could hear her. Let them see exactly what they expect to see. Zeph Prime targeted the human fleet with his plasma cannons. The energy beams that could melt mountains struck the water where the ships waited. Explosions filled the ocean as what appeared to be humanity's last hope was destroyed in seconds, but the burning wreckage floating on the waves was not real. The holographic projections created by Elena Martinez's team had worked perfectly. The actual human ships were hidden in deep ocean trenches 30 kilometers away from the false targets. Phase 1 complete, Lisa announced through Amy Foster's quantum network. The aliens think they just destroyed our fleet. All units prepare for Phase 2. Korth 7 reported to Zeth Prime that the demonstration had proceeded exactly as planned. Human military resistance had been eliminated with minimal effort, and the species would now understand the hopelessness of opposing Vorthan technology. But something strange happened next. Instead of surrender signals from Earth, the Vorthans began receiving transmissions that they had never encountered before in 43 previous conquests. Nice shot, came a human voice over their communication system. Did you enjoy destroying our pool toys? Zeth Prime's body flashed confused colors as more transmissions flooded their channels. Your aim is pretty good for such big ships, said another voice. Maybe next time try hitting something that actually matters. Is that really the best you can do? Asked the third voice. Our kids have water guns that are more impressive. The alien commander had never experienced mockery from a species he was conquering. The psychological warfare component of Colonel Morrison's plan was working exactly as intended. Instead of fear and submission, the Vorthans were hearing laughter and ridicule. Silence your communications, Zeth Prime ordered his fleet. These primitive sounds are meaningless, but the real shock came when the aliens tried to locate human population centers for their next demonstration. Every major city on Earth had vanished from their sensors. Where London and New York and Tokyo should have been, their instruments showed only empty land. Dr. Elena Martinez had activated her quantum disruption fields simultaneously across the planet. The energy patterns that Vorthan sensors relied on were being scrambled by technology the aliens could not detect or understand. Sir, we are unable to target civilian populations, Korth 7 reported with growing alarm. Our sensors show no signs of human habitation anywhere on the planet. Zeth Prime's crystalline form turned deep red with frustration. That is impossible. Primitive species do not possess sensor jamming technology. Amy Foster coordinated the next phase from her command center in Colorado. Through her quantum network, she sent activation signals to resistance cells in every major city on Earth. All units execute Phase 3. Her message went out instantly to millions of human fighters. Show them what we learned while they were watching. The attack began with mining equipment that had been secretly converted into weapons. Explosive charges designed for breaking rock were detonated under carefully selected bridges just as Vorthan ground forces began crossing them. The aliens found themselves falling into rivers and canyons they had not expected to encounter. Construction mechs that normally moved building materials were now armed with electromagnetic pulse generators. They emerged from hiding places in cities that appeared empty to alien sensors and began attacking Vorthan, atmospheric craft with weapons that disrupted their energy systems. Agricultural drones that should have been harvesting crops instead swarmed around alien fighter ships in coordinated formations. They were not trying to destroy the advanced craft, but to force emergency landings in locations where human resistance fighters were waiting. Captain Roy Bennett commanded the overall tactical response from a mobile command center that looked like a food delivery truck. His asymmetric warfare strategies were designed to target Vorthan assumptions rather than their technology. They expect us to attack their strongest points, Bennett explained to his team. Instead, we target their confidence. Every action we take should make them question what they think they know about us. The psychological impact was immediate. Vorthan, forces that had conquered 43 worlds without serious resistance, suddenly found themselves dealing with an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Human fighters did not try to destroy alien technology because they knew they lacked the firepower. Instead, they used captured alien equipment against its creators. Vorthan communication devices were reprogrammed to broadcast human music. Alien sensors were modified to show false readings that made Earth appear to be defended by impossible numbers of ships. Dr. Alex Carter activated his biological warfare systems from his laboratory in London. Atmospheric distribution networks that the aliens mistook for air conditioning began releasing targeted bacteria into areas where Vorthan ground forces were operating. The crystalline aliens found themselves becoming sluggish and confused as the bacteria interfered with their silicon-based metabolism. They were not being killed but temporarily paralyzed in a way that demonstrated human understanding of alien biology. "We could have chosen to destroy you," came a transmission to the Vorthan fleet. "Instead, we chose mercy. Please note the difference." Zeth Prime was experiencing something completely outside his understanding of how conquest was supposed to work. His superior technology was being countered by tactics he had never encountered. His psychological dominance was being undermined by an enemy that refused to acknowledge Vorthan's superiority. The climax of the first day came when Amy Foster coordinated the most ambitious demonstration in human history. Every facility on Earth that the aliens believed to be civilian infrastructure suddenly revealed its true purpose. Factories stopped producing consumer goods and began broadcasting coordinated signals into space. Hospitals activated hidden communication arrays. Schools synchronized their emergency lighting systems. Agricultural centers aligned their irrigation networks. The result was a planet-wide message that appeared in perfect formation above Earth, visible to every Vorthan ship in orbit. "Welcome to Earth," the synchronized display read. "Population underestimated." The message remained visible for exactly 60 seconds before every system returned to appearing normal. But the impact on Vorthan psychology was devastating. Korth 7 trembled as he made his report. "Sir, the humans have demonstrated coordination capabilities that should be impossible for their technology level. They have weapon systems hidden throughout their civilian infrastructure. Most disturbing, they appear to have studied our tactics and prepared specific countermeasures." Zeth Prime looked out at the planet below with his crystalline form cycling through colors of confusion and growing respect. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing an enemy that had turned his own advantages against him. The species he had dismissed as primitive had just demonstrated tactical innovation, tactical coordination, and technological capability that exceeded anything in Vorthan military doctrine. Worse yet, they had done it while maintaining what appeared to be normal civilian activities. "Send a message to command," Zeth Prime ordered reluctantly. "We may have underestimated this species. Request additional strategic analysis before proceeding." With standard conquest protocols on Earth, millions of humans celebrated their first victory against impossible odds. But they knew the real fight was just beginning. Zeth Prime had not recharged his energy systems in 2 days. His crystalline body flickered with exhausted colors as he studied tactical reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about primitive species warfare. The humans have violated 17 different principles of conventional military engagement, Korth 7 reported while his own form displayed confusion patterns. They attack our supply lines instead of our weapons. They target our communications rather than our shields. They seem to understand our tactical doctrine better than we understand theirs. The alien commander accessed files from 43 previous conquests looking for precedents. No species had ever forced the Vorthan Empire to adapt its strategies. Most surrendered after the first demonstration of superior firepower. Dr. Alex Carter was refining his biological weapons in a mobile laboratory that changed locations every few hours. His targeted bacteria had proven effective at temporarily disabling Vorthan ground forces without causing permanent harm. The paralysis effect lasts exactly 4 hours, Alex reported to Colonel Morrison through the quantum network. Long enough to capture equipment and gather intelligence, but not long enough to cause lasting damage. We are sending a very specific message about human capabilities. Morrison understood the psychological warfare implications. We could kill them, but we choose not to. That demonstrates both technological capability and moral superiority. Elena Martinez had moved her weapons development team to an abandoned subway tunnel beneath New York. Her quantum disruption technology was evolving faster than the aliens could adapt to it. Every time they modify their sensors to compensate for our jamming, we change the disruption frequency, Elena explained to her international team. They are always one step behind because they think in terms of fixed solutions while we think in terms of constant adaptation. The space battles had become elaborate games of strategy rather than displays of overwhelming force. Commander Steve Walsh commanded modified civilian craft that engaged Vorthan fighters using unconventional tactics. Construction mechs designed for building skyscrapers grappled with alien attack ships in zero-gravity combat. Mining vessels equipped with gravitational manipulation systems worked together to destabilize massive Vorthan capital ships. We cannot destroy their vessels with brute force, Walsh reported from his command ship disguised as a garbage collection craft. But we can make them waste energy and resources while we learn how their technology actually works. Captain Lucy Hayes had made the most important discovery of the war. Her intelligence team had successfully intercepted Vorthan communications and discovered that other species in their empire were watching Earth's resistance with growing interest. 12 different worlds that the Vorthans conquered in the past century are monitoring our conflict, Lucy reported to President Brooks in the secure bunker beneath Colorado. For the first time, they are seeing proof that the empire can be challenged. Brooks realized the implications immediately. This is not just about Earth anymore. We are fighting for every species that was forced to submit to Vorthan dominance. Amy Foster had expanded her quantum communication network beyond Earth, using principles that Vorthan technology could not detect. She had established contact with resistance movements on occupied worlds. The psychological impact of our defiance is spreading throughout their empire, Amy reported during a global coordination meeting. Species that accepted relocation decades ago are starting to question whether submission was their only option. The turning point came when Elena Martinez's team achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They successfully captured a Vorthan scout ship without destroying it, and without killing its crew. The alien pilot had been forced to make an emergency landing after agricultural drones disrupted his flight systems. Instead of killing him or destroying his technology, human fighters had provided medical assistance and repaired his damaged equipment. Dr. Alex Carter personally treated the injured alien using medical knowledge adapted from his biological warfare research. The Vorthan pilot recovered completely and found that humans had actually improved his ship's life support systems. "Why did you help me?" the alien asked through his translation device when he regained consciousness. "Your species is supposed to hate us for conquering your world." Alex looked at the crystalline being with genuine curiosity rather than fear or anger. "You were hurt and we could help. That is what humans do. We do not hate you for following orders from your leaders." The captured pilot was returned to his ship with a message that spread throughout the Vorthan fleet. "Your crew member was injured but will recover. We have upgraded your life support systems as a gesture of goodwill. Please acknowledge receipt of humanitarian aid." Zeth Prime received the message with colors of complete bewilderment. In his centuries of military service, he had never encountered an enemy that would repair captured equipment and return it improved. This behavior is outside all parameters of conquest psychology, he transmitted to his superiors. The humans demonstrate military capability that threatens our tactical advantage, while maintaining ethical principles that our empire abandoned long ago. The response from Vorthan Command was immediate and unprecedented. Suspend all offensive operations pending strategic review. A species displaying such contradictory capabilities requires analysis by the Council of Primes. Meanwhile, human resistance efforts continued to evolve. Dr. Elena Martinez had reverse-engineered enough Vorthan technology to create hybrid systems that combined alien energy manipulation with human efficiency principles. "We are not trying to copy their technology," Elena explained to her team. "We are improving it by applying human engineering principles that prioritize adaptability over raw power." Colonel Morrison's psychological warfare had achieved effects beyond anything he had planned. Intercepted Vorthan communication showed growing doubt within their military hierarchy. Some of their junior officers are questioning whether conquest is the most efficient method of expansion, Morrison reported. They are starting to wonder if cooperation might achieve better results. Then domination. Captain Roy Bennett coordinated the most ambitious operation of the war, using Amy Foster's quantum network to achieve perfect timing. Human resistance cells demonstrated their technological capabilities simultaneously across the globe. Weather control systems that had been secretly modified created temporary aurora displays that spelled out messages visible from orbit. Geological monitoring equipment generated precisely controlled seismic waves that transmitted mathematical proofs through the planet's crust. Ocean current manipulation systems created surface patterns that demonstrated human understanding of fluid dynamics. The message was clear. Humans possessed technological sophistication that the Vorthans had not detected because it operated on principles the Empire had never encountered. Zeth Prime watched the planet-wide demonstration with his crystalline form, cycling through colors that his species had not experienced in centuries. Respect mixed with curiosity, mixed with something that might have been admiration. Request direct communication with human leadership, he transmitted to Earth. Standard conquest protocols appear to be inadequate for this situation, Admiral Lisa. Kane received the transmission in her hidden command center and realized that something fundamental had changed. For the first time in Vorthan history, a conquered species had forced the Empire to request negotiations rather than demand surrender. "Patch me through to President Brooks," Lisa said to her communications officer. "I think we just achieved something that 43 other worlds could not manage." Amy Foster prepared to transmit humanity's response through every communication channel simultaneously. The message would be brief, but it would represent a turning point in galactic politics. "We accept your request for direct communication," came the reply to Zeth Prime. "We suggest meeting as equals to discuss mutual interests rather than conquest." Terms. The alien commander looked at the message for a long time before responding. His form flickered with colors that meant he was thinking about concepts his species had not considered for thousands of years. On Earth, millions of humans waited to see if they had earned something more valuable than victory. They had won the right to be respected as equals by the most powerful empire in the galaxy. The meeting took place aboard Earth's orbital station that had been built in secret during the months of preparation. President Helen Brooks stood in the conference room looking out at both human and Vorthan ships floating peacefully in space. Around them, Zeta Prime entered through an airlock specially modified to accommodate his crystalline physiology. His body no longer flashed the aggressive colors of conquest, but showed patterns that human translators had learned meant curiosity and cautious respect. "You have achieved something unprecedented in galactic history," Zeth Prime said as he settled into a chair designed for his larger frame. "No species has ever forced the Empire to request negotiations." Brooks sat across from him with Dr. Alex Carter and Admiral Lisa Kane flanking her. "We never wanted to fight you. We simply wanted to be treated as partners rather than obstacles." The alien leader's form flickered with what appeared to be confusion. "Partnership implies equality. Your technology is still primitive compared to ours. Your world's number only one while ours span hundreds of systems." Dr. Carter leaned forward with the xenobiological data his team had compiled. "Our technology may be different, but it operates on principles that could benefit your empire. Earth's biodiversity includes organisms that produce compounds valuable to Vorthan medicine, but only if harvested through cooperation," Alex continued. "Forced relocation would destroy the ecological relationships that create these compounds. Partnership preserves value that conquest would eliminate." Elena Martinez joined the meeting through Amy Foster's quantum network, speaking from her laboratory beneath the station. "We have analyzed Vorthan energy systems and identified improvements that could increase efficiency by 40% while reducing resource consumption." Zeth Prime's body shifted to colors of genuine interest. "You would share technological advances with a species that threatened your existence. We would share knowledge with partners who respect our right to exist," Brooks replied. "The question is whether the Vorthan Empire is interested in growing stronger through cooperation or remaining static through domination." Admiral Kane activated a holographic display showing star charts of local space. "Our quantum communication technology has already contacted other species in your empire. The psychological impact of Earth's resistance has inspired independence movements on 12 worlds. Your rigid conquest model is creating instability throughout your territory," Kane continued. "But a cooperative model could transform that instability into strength." Korth 7, who had been silent during the negotiations, finally spoke. "The humans demonstrate tactical innovation that our military doctrine lacks. Their adaptive strategies could strengthen Imperial defense capabilities if properly integrated." Colonel Morrison connected to the meeting from his mobile command center. "We studied your previous conquests and noticed a pattern. Every species you dominated eventually stagnated. They stopped innovating because innovation was no longer necessary for survival. But Earth continued to develop because we were fighting for our existence," Morrison continued. "That kind of motivated innovation could benefit every world in your empire if you changed your approach from conquest to partnership." Amy Foster shared the most revolutionary information of all. "Our quantum networks can connect every world in your empire with instantaneous communication. No more delays in coordinating across galactic distances. No more isolation between distant colonies. And we are prepared to share this technology freely as a gesture of partnership," Amy added. "No payment required, no territorial concessions demanded. Simple cooperation between equals." Zeth Prime had lived for over 2 centuries and commanded Vorthan fleets for most of that time. He had never encountered a situation where generosity was offered by a technologically inferior species to their conquerors. Your offer of technological cooperation challenges fundamental assumptions about power relationships between species, the alien leader admitted. The Empire operates on principles of hierarchical dominance where strength determines worth. But your species demonstrates strength through cooperation rather than domination, Zeth Prime continued. You coordinated global resistance using principles we did not understand. You developed countermeasures to technology we considered invincible. Most importantly, you maintained ethical standards while fighting for survival. President Brooks stood and walked to the viewport where Earth floated blue and green against the stars. The choice is yours, Zeth Prime. You can continue the old pattern of conquest and domination, or you can try something new, something that benefits everyone involved instead of just the strongest, Brooks continued. Your empire has the infrastructure and energy technology. We have innovation and adaptive thinking. Together we could explore regions of space that neither of us could reach alone. Dr. Carter presented his final argument. Evolution works through cooperation as much as competition. Species that work together survive longer and achieve more than species that fight constantly for dominance. The galaxy is vast enough for both our approaches to coexist, Alex continued. But imagine what we could discover if we combined Vorthen power with human creativity. The negotiations continued for 6 hours as details of a new relationship were worked out. The Vorthen Empire would become the Galactic Cooperative with Earth as its first voluntary partner rather than conquered territory. Zeth Prime formally renounced his title of Prime and accepted the designation of Coordinator, reflecting a shift from autocratic command to collaborative leadership. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Vorthen society for millennia began evolving toward more flexible organizational structures. Amy Foster's quantum communication networks were integrated with Vorthen infrastructure, creating an instantaneous galaxy-spanning information grid. Elena Martinez's efficiency improvements were applied to Vorthen energy systems, reducing waste and increasing capability across hundreds of worlds. Most importantly, the psychological impact of Earth's successful resistance inspired other species throughout the former empire. Worlds that had submitted to conquest decades earlier began asserting their own cultural identities and technological contributions. 6 months after the first meeting, Dr. Elena Martinez stood on the command deck of a ship that embodied the new partnership. The vessel used Vorthen energy cores to power human-designed exploration systems, capable of reaching previously unexplored regions of space. Navigation systems operating at maximum efficiency, reported her Vorthen co-pilot, whose crystalline form now displayed colors of excitement rather than dominance. The quantum drive is performing beyond projected parameters. Elena smiled as she looked out at stars that no Earth-born human had ever seen before. The joint expedition included scientists from both species working together to expand knowledge rather than territory. Zeth Prime, now calling himself Coordinator Zeth, transmitted from the flagship of the mixed fleet. Long-range sensors indicate a solar system with unusual energy signatures ahead. Recommend joint investigation using combined technological approaches. Admiral Kane responded from her command ship, which now carried both human crew and Vorthen technical specialists. Agreed, Coordinator. This is exactly the kind of discovery that requires both our capabilities. On Earth, children attended schools where human teachers worked alongside Vorthen educators, sharing knowledge from across the galaxy. The rigid conquest model had been replaced by collaborative learning that benefited every species involved. President Brooks received daily reports showing how the partnership was transforming both civilizations. Human innovation was spreading throughout former Vorthen territory while alien technology was revolutionizing Life on Earth. But the most important change was psychological. The galaxy had learned that cooperation could achieve more than conquest. Respect could be earned rather than demanded. Strength could come from lifting others up rather than putting them down. Amy Foster monitored communications across the expanded network and marveled at what they had accomplished. The species that had once threatened to relocate humanity was now exploring the stars as partners. We wanted their respect, she transmitted to Dr. Carter, who was leading a joint research mission in another sector. But we got something even better. We got friendship. Earth had taught the galaxy that true strength came not from the ability to dominate others, but from the wisdom to work together toward common goals that benefited everyone involved. The transformation was complete. The age of conquest had ended and the era of cooperation had begun.